Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to our Mission Genealogy uh, office hours Q&A session. This is part of our Mission Genealogy's clubhouse for family historians and genealogists here on Substack. Because as each of us has come in here, we're kind of stumped by the interface, how this works, how that works, what to expect. And we thought it might be useful to have a single place that we could gather, share ideas, encourage each other, get to know the actual people behind the articles that we've come to love and care for. And most of all, in today's excuse is to have a place to compare notes and ask questions. I am delighted to welcome so many of you as Mission Genealogy members to join me today with the Q&A session. And I want to start with a question that was submitted early on by Jennifer Jones in Victoria, Australia, who was asking for a friend in an email to me earlier. She couldn't be here today. About why it was a friend of hers was very confused because she had been trying to get into her Substack and thought she had two different Substacks. One that was listed as substack.com at a handle name, and the other was at a handle name.substack.com. So what's the difference where at handle name is, well, the handle name? So for example, Project Kin is at Project Kin, I am Barbara at Project Kin, and my handle is at Project Kin. Then my publication is projectkin.substack.com. So is that two different things or the same thing or what? It's a really good question. And so I wanted to take a moment to answer it. Quite simply, when you're in Substack, it's really important to understand that you as a person have an account. If you write, you can write without having a publication. So each post you send out is accessible. Anybody else could find it because they were following you or subscribing. But they could also find it by going to your account, which is at substack.com/your handle. Now, it starts to get tricky when you create a publication because, surprise, you can have multiple publications for one person. For example, yeah, we go. For example, Project Kin is my main publication. But I also have this separate clubhouse, Mission Genealogy. That's one account, Barbara Tien, was one account, Project Kin, and I actually have two different publications. With Mission Genealogy, I am a contributor, whole separate conversation, but I have two publications that I'm responsible for. So one's an account, one's a publication. When it is the Substack name.substack.com, that's always the publication. When it's /at a handle name, that's always the account. There's a lot more detail about how those are configured and the kinds of things that are accessible for configuring. And I'll have some of those I think I've already explained elsewhere. I'll see if I can't pull up that article and reference it in the notes to this recording. So all of you watching this recording will have access to that. So who's got another question? Or, by the way, I don't have to be the only one answering these. So, Deborah, did you say you had a question for me?
Sorry, trying to unmute. I'm working on my next tip, and it's about getting our information out there. And I talk about various things, and I haven't even written the Substack section because I got to study it some more. But you said that the subtitle of the article is where the SEO stuff. So if you'd like to explain that again.
I certainly would. Thank you. That's a great question. And you've given me an opportunity to also slip in there a little brag. But before I do, very important point. Did you all know who Deborah Carl is? Deborah has a section or a column within Mission Genealogy where she is sharing tips. Now, the cool thing is that she is the editor of this column. So all of you who discover genealogy tips, tips about using Substack, are very welcome to submit tips to Deborah. Anything else you want to add to that one before I go on to the answer to your question, Deborah? Okay. So the question here was about the subtitle. You have, when you write a post, you have a title or a headline, a subtitle or a subhead, and then the body of your post. You may have footnotes, as Deborah's pointed out. You may have other kinds of things, embedded articles, links, and so on. But you always have that subtitle. You don't always have to use it, but it's right there for you in a light gray text with something like subtitle. The tricky thing about that subtitle is whatever you put in there as a default populates what's called the SEO description field. So if you go into that settings button in the bottom right-hand corner of a post, you will see an SEO section. So let me go to, I wish I'd planned this. Let me go to a recent post of my own. Forgive the blatant self-dealing here. So let me share my screen. And you can all see my screen here. This is a post that I did last week. And if I scroll down here to, oh, I have to be in the edit mode. You can't change something unless you're in the edit mode. All right, now I'm in the edit mode and I can scroll down here to settings. Go down to settings and you see SEO options. See that right there? Click the drop down, not obvious. Click the drop down and this description, see that as we acquire knowledge and wisdom, right? That is exactly, oh, and by the way, the title, the description of here is where you're changing it. And I just hit the down. You could also go in here and edit. You can also change this image, but we'll come back to that. So this is in the settings, and as we acquire knowledge and wisdom, it is exactly the same by default. Now, if for whatever reason in presenting my article, I don't want a lot of blah, blah, blah. I want the drama of 2 words, something succinct and pithy. You can do that because you can separately edit that description. But what is true is that when you share a post, absolutely what you put in that description is what Substack uses as the SEO population for a given post. Now, let's hope this works. See this link, developers.facebook/tools/debug. It's a little insider trick. Let's hope I'm logged into Facebook. Yes. So now if I go back to that same post, copy link, go into Facebook. This is a tool that Facebook developed for developers, and it lets them see what the metadata description is for any post, which can be, from a development perspective, very interesting. All it does, it just goes out and scrapes the web to see any link anywhere, anyhow. What will it look like if it's pasted into into Facebook? Facebook uses standard-based protocols to decide what's going to appear there. So it's a great way to check your protocols. In this case, what does Substack do? So Substack gives the image, it gives the Substack URL, the headline, and then the beginning of that description. So this is what would appear in Facebook, but this is the OG description. Open Graph is the protocol. Open Graph description, we acquire knowledge through. And that can be very, very helpful to SEO. And I have a nice little success story. Just last week, I did a post. Just last week, I was contacted by a distant cousin who, sure enough, had seen my 16s post. And which I vaguely mentioned a little bit about my dad's family and how I'm missing a lot of that. And he reached out to me, and we share a great grandfather. And boom, I'm like pulling down all this wonderful connections, and it's going to be a post in the future. So great question. Did that answer it? Yeah. Okay. Who's next? Go ahead. Diane, you're off of mute. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it might be good to also, you had that image, that great image in there. It's also important to use the alt metadata to make sure that images might be Googled. So like my Leonora images are, they normally come up right on the first page. I might not get the article up on the first page, but my images are.
That's a fabulous point. And just to be really clear, the alt information is what you're configuring when you bring in a photo into your post. You know how to add the cap. You can size it on the toggles on either side. And then there's a 3-dot menu at the upper right-hand corner. And on that 3-dot menu, you can add a caption. You can also add the alt. Always add the alt. I think I've always done that. Not sure. Yeah, that's a great one.
Now that's something I don't do. So on the alt, what are you putting? Are you putting the name of the photo?
So I would always start with the web's intent. So the intent for alt data from the web's perspective is to make images accessible to people who are vision constrained. So someone who is blind, let them see the picture. So the picture might say, a young woman dangling her feet outside of of an early 20th century car. An old woman is in the back, and a man who appears to be a man in the back of the car. Black and white, something like that. Then you can sneak in your own objectives that might be relevant to what you're trying to say. This image is part of Project Kin at projectkin.substack.com, an article about the Parker family or something like that. So you see what I mean? You start with what they want you to do, and then you slip in your objectives. Would you agree, Diane?
Yeah, and if you've got like you talked about the woman dangling her leg, if that's dangling her leg off of a bridge, someone in that local market might say, type in like, XYZ bridge, and now your image will come up, which would link them to your Substack, and it would just be sort of a, happy accident.
Yeah, this is catnip. That's what that is. It's catnip. So if you have anything now, you're right. In that case, somebody, I need to give credit. Somebody's come back and given me the very specific car that is. I now know what that car is. I'm going to slip that into the data. That's a very good point. I missed that one. Great tip. Thank you. Now, do you all know who Diane is? We have two Dianes here, so I'm coming to you, Diane Bowerbird. But Diane Burley has deep chops in media, in old school media. We had a lovely call this morning, so she's got some. That's not just a hot tip. That's a hot tip with a lot of deep experience behind it. So thank you, Diane Giles, Ms. Bowerbird. Step on up.
Yes, I've got a basic question. I'm still having trouble when I've done a post, then I create a note with comment. In the comment, I want to put a link to someone else, someone else's handle or their publication or a specific post that they've posted, and I'm having trouble in the comments part of notes to get that to work. So can you run through that?
Yeah, no, that is a fabulous question. And I've wanted to bring that up before, but I was always afraid of confusing people. but by bringing it up in that context, that's very helpful. Some of you may remember last month or the month before, I circulated a PDF attached to the notes from the office hours that says Substack formatting behaviors, and I'll stick that into this one again. And it covers some of this here, and it's really counterintuitive. I had to do specific testing to figure it out. So you're right to be confused, and you're confused because it's inconsistent behavior.
Yeah.
It's consistent within categories, but I had to test to figure out what those are. So first of all, Substack has a principle of trying to embed their own content. In other words, if you paste a link from your own publication in a post, it will bring the whole thing in with beautiful pictures and everything, video, even if it's video. If you include a link to my post, you get this tombstone, standard tombstone, right? You've seen that in, for example, GenStack, Robin Stewart's GenStack. But that's for a post. When you go to do it in a note, again, they're taking the same bias. They will, as a preference, bring in their own content. So if you're writing a note and you paste in a link to your own content, boom, it will embed. If you are making a reference to a person, you need to enter at the handle. Because remember I said about accounts and publications? This is an account. A person is an account. So you have the at of their handle. And sometimes, like, my handle is not Barbara. My handle is Project Kin. So you have to start typing at T to get to me. Kind of counterintuitive. And that's something for people who have their names, but then their publications that are not always the same, which, by the way, is why I always refer to you immediately as Bowerbird. First, I love the Bowerbird, but also Giles is not in your handle, and I'm remembering you by your handle. So that's how that works. Then you have a problem of, what if you do a restack of someone else's post and you want to include a link to some other publications? That's where it gets messy, because if you include the link and you were doing a restack, then the original link is gone, because you can only have one embed per note. And that's where the problem lies. Also, when you try to add it as a comment, so you're putting a comment to a post, oddly, don't know why, links do not embed into comments. They just don't at all. And at names don't work at all. So when you restack, you'd hit that checkbox in a note, in a comment on a post, it now restacks that post and your comment right at the top, which is great. But the person who saw it might get notified because you made a comment to their post. But if you want to mention somebody else, they won't know unless you @name them. But you wrote it as a note and now you can't change it. Actually, you can. After you hit the note, you hit edit and put the @name in. But be really careful right there. If you paste in a link, now it's going to change the link. But if it does that, you can edit it again, have the link ready from the original post, paste it in again. And anyway, so that's why when I make a reference to an external thing in a note, you will see that I insert a space between, I'll say, like, Project Kin space.org/events. You want to register, go to, so it's not a valid link, but most people are smart enough to know that that space doesn't belong there. That all make sense?
Okay, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Since you got that one, here's another really subtle one. It's so strange. I've said this before. Chat, they use the same word for a channel conversation. In other words, a conversation among all subscribers, and a one-on-one chat. They're both called chat. To me, one's not really chat. And if in the conversation with other subscribers, you mention someone, it will have a live You know, in other words, they will actually get notified. It will be a clickable link. But if you do that in a one-on-one, it doesn't work. That's inconsistent. The other thing that's maddening is that if you put a, you know, we just talked about embedding into a note, it auto links. If you paste in a URL, it's like good to go, right? But if you paste a link into a post, any kind of post, it won't auto link. It just won't. And I think the reason they do that is that when you paste in a link into a post, you might want to have anchor text. It's called anchor text that is on the page. You might want to have different anchor text from what the actual link is. And I know in a lot of genealogy use cases, you just don't do that. You want to be explicit about where that link is going. So that's where the problem is. Okay, go ahead, Chris. Anybody else? That's it. Are we done? Come on, man. Yeah.
I have another question. I notice a lot of people's notes are very long. When you make
I'm
the
especially guilty of that.
well, and I'm getting longer, and I'm finding people are engaging with them. So short and pithy doesn't seem to work. So do you? How do you? Is there any sort of rule between when it should be a note, when it should be an essay? I've actually tried making it a note and then turning it into an essay. I don't know. Is that what you do?
That's another. No, that's another really good question. You started to ask me this one when we chatted this morning, and I'm sorry I didn't get back to it. The most important thing to understand between notes and posts is that a note will do nothing for SEO. A post does everything for SEO. So, well, you know, and I often use a note to sort of think something through. And like the one I did a 2-part note today that asked 2 genealogy questions that were kind of linked. And I was thinking about them. I guess it was even after talking to you. And it had just been, oh, I know, it was a follow-up to the guy that reached out to me on SEO, actually. And so I'm like, yeah, I know this is too long, but I'm just going to keep on going because I just don't have time to make, I wasn't being strategic about it. I just had a question to ask. And I think that's totally fine. I worry sometimes when I have these long, complicated things like nobody's listening. On the other hand, I personally, I think it varies. That, you know, my personal taste is I'm not here for social media. I'm not here to game the short and pithy and get lots of likes to something. Because frankly, that doesn't do you any good, right? What matters is that people actually notice you and engage with you. So, you know, sometimes I will use a long note to think something through that may later become a larger note. It also may become a larger note when I can see whether other people are interested in the topic.
So yesterday, and you were kind enough to engage with it. I did this tribute to a friend of mine who I actually had written an essay about, but I didn't link to that. And I didn't know if I should have linked to it. And that really wasn't the point. I wasn't trying to drive people to that. I was actually trying to make a comment about her young kids. Do you have any? I guess that's just
It was very touching. Oh no, I remember it, and it was very, very touching. And first of all, I saw something. Somebody says, I know it's uncool to make reference to my own post. I'm like, well, who is out there making these rules about what you should and shouldn't do? I mean, come on, man. If it doesn't feel right socially, then it probably isn't right. And then use that as your guide.
Right.
Is it kind? Is it thoughtful? You know, use those as your rule.
Right. Makes sense.
You know, and in that case, I don't know. I might have missed your longer post, and it would have been perfectly fine, in my view, if you were to answer something that I wrote to then say, here's the larger post. Boom, fine.
That's a good idea.
But you know, I take it as a given that everyone who is on Substack is interested in more engagement and more subscribers. So it is always kind. If you know, oh, the other day I was talking to Diane. Which Diane? About what? What? Bring them into the conversation. It's just rude to just casually toss it off. Who are you talking about? And if you're, you know, not saying something nice, why are you talking about it? So anyway, those are my kind of rules.
Well, can I see something how I
I mean-
feel about that?
Y-
I didn't
Go ahead,
see
Linda. Yes.
Diane, I didn't see yours, but if I saw that and you commented on somebody and you had a post about it, I'd want you to put the post on there because I want to know about that person. And I thought that's part of what notes are, is to help promo stuff like that. So if you're talking about, you know, somebody, just like I talked about, my iris is all ballooned, and here is a post if you want to see them all in one fell swoop, you know. So, but again, on something like that, if you're talking about somebody, you know, I'd like to know more about that person. So that's my take on it.
Okay,
I've
that's
also
good to know.
I've also noticed, maybe this is, I haven't specifically tested it, but I think when when a post goes out of mine, it's automatically doing a note. It's posting a note about the post that I just did, because I didn't post that. It just appears.
What?
Oh, really?
Really?
I'll have to go back and double check, but I thought that's what it was doing. And maybe I'm only seeing it in my activity thread to say that this did post. I don't know.
One of the things I just found it I thought was super cool. I think you do it, Barbara, a lot, is you actually highlight some of your text in your piece, and when you share it, it shares in a nice little, like a little special box, you know, with color and stuff like that, which makes it look.
Oh, uh-huh.
I just learned that during
Yes.
year and a half.
And did you see how you can like change the configuration on it?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very nice. It sort of feels like something that might get overdone, but it's a feature that's been around for a while. So I think a lot of people, you know, from a development perspective, you try to have things that aren't obvious and let people discover it and then feel good about themselves for discovering it. So that's, you know, from their perspective, a part of the design goal. You can even, in that same, select a bit of text. Can't quite remember where it is, but you can have, or at least you used to be able to have it do a video of a text post. So it will, oh, she said she had to go. So the text will, you know, scroll by, something like that. It's an animation of the text.
Mm.
Video always gets more eyeballs. It's
So
amazing.
your post, yesterday's post that, or this week's post that you did, you've got video up there. Does that, I think you've got the ocean, right? It's the one up, no, it's the one about your,
Oh, the week before. Yeah, about my mom. Yeah. That was just a video, a GoPro video my nephew took.
so when you
And
shared that, is the video then what people see, and is that moving?
mhm, it's just as if I did the video from all of this.
Okay.
The video does not have to be long. And in fact, you can do the same thing in a note. So you can take a brand new note and drag and drop in video. And now the video will play. Every time somebody moves their little mouse over the video, it starts to play. It's kind of cool. Oddly, they don't do GIF. I don't know why, but if you do video, it does that. It can take 4K video, super high quality video. So you can take it doesn't have to be an hour-long video. It can be a little short moment. Actually, that one did really well. It did really, really well. And I mean, it took me a week and a lot of tears to get it done. You just don't crank that stuff out, but you know, thank you.
A question about pictures. Why my pictures often get cut off, their heads get cut off.
Ah, great question. You're talking about pictures that you're adding into a post
And they're the
when
ones
they become the preview image for the
Yes.
post.
Yes.
So what Substack is doing is, I think they may be trying with AI to figure out where to crop it. but a single image that is in a profile mode has to be cropped in order to appear in the tombstone in the HD format. Usually it's actually 1200 by 628 is the aspect ratio for preview images in links. So I showed you that preview image that you saw on the developer page. That is a standard. So Substack
So
can't change that.
1200 by what?
1200 by 628. That is Google's description of what that standard is. There are some variations. So if you look at, you look for, it's the OG image, open graph image.
Okay.
And the best thing to do, and I figured this out while doing my members corner. I had, a writer, I did the editing on the post and I included the post and they had one fabulous image, but it was high resolution, but really, really profile. So what I did was I took that image and I dropped it on top of a white page that was 1200 by 628, so that when the preview image appears, you see the full image is just smaller and forced into the middle of a white page. And then on the page, because you can adjust the width, I went ahead and made the profile image really big, which was beautiful. It worked out really well into the image. What's really happening in the back end is Substack is doing all the fancy dancy downsizing of that image, so it makes a good preview image. That's a big deal. If you've ever tried to do that yourself, it's super annoying to have to create all these different images that go in with a file. And they do that automatically.
So do you not worry about the size of the file? So on my website, it's always 600. And that's because of how the whatever they call it, the layout.
The back end servers, the hosting, the layout. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever the
Substack
layout's
does
called.
all of
There's a name
that.
for it.
A template, maybe.
Yeah, it's not a template, but it's something. It's a template, really. So I do 600 with them. So I just continue to do 600, but I don't know. And of course, the DPI is different. I do DPI usually 72 to 100 or whatever.
Right. Substack, all of those things, there's aspect ratio, which is, the frame, the ratio between height and width. And then there is the DPI, the dots per inch, or the resolution of an image. And then there is sort of the maximum width or the target width, which is, I think, probably what you're saying, of 600 pixels. Something
That's
like that.
Yeah.
And Substack actually takes care of all of that for you. Generally speaking, within gig sizes, it doesn't care. You just take your image the way it is. And if you have a very nothing can make a low resolution image look good. Downsizing is really easy from a high resolution image. If it's a stupid high resolution image, like a gigabit size, it just becomes hard for your computer to manage it. Don't do that. That's just not necessary. Generally speaking, the numbers I've memorized that would just make everything easier is 1920 by 1080. 1080, that 1920 by 1080 is what HD aspect ratio is. And that has been such a dominant player for all of these things. It's really easy to adjust. And then you can get narrower if you want something to stretch across the entire page. How do people know that there's something below it? So if it's too high, they don't know to keep on going to look below it. So that's probably not a good idea. Make sense? Those are really good questions. Really good. Jane, you've been very quiet. I have a feeling you've got a question there. I just know it. Now you got to hit the mute button. I can't hear it. Yeah. Yeah, mute.
No, I don't actually have a question, but one thing I was thinking about when you were talking about Diane Giles's question was the issues with the app. When you say you're restacking something and you're trying to say at whoever, it always hides behind the picture. sometimes you can see a little bit of it and you can get to it, but it's really, really difficult.
In the
Sometimes you just
notes
can't
on
do it.
in the notes on the app.
On the app, when you say you are restacking a post, for example, and it comes up as a note, and you've got their post there, and you've got a little bit to write at the top, and you go at whoever. The at thing hides behind their post.
Yeah. I agree with you. That's really
Not very
annoying.
functional.
No,
And the
no.
other thing I don't like about the app is that it doesn't pick up all your extra headings, you know, like on the website when you've got extra tags or headings.
Pages just don't look, you know. I
Yeah,
agree with you. Really annoying. I have had somebody like saying, I'm at Project Kin and I don't see this thing you're talking about. I had to take all my different sections and put it onto a separate page. So I have event recordings. You have to go to Project Kin and you have event recordings, and that goes to a separate page, which, by the way, is not actually on Substack. It's on a separate web page. And then you click that to go to, you know, recipes. You go to recipes, and now you're back on a Substack page. You can't get to that page at all from the app. And I don't have a solution for it because I don't know. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, because I have quite a few tabs now on both of my publications, and one of the tabs, like on my Kyburn Diggings One Place Study, I've got a tab at the top that takes you straight to the study, but obviously it doesn't show up on the app.
Actually, the solution the only solution I've seen that works is to create a page and then pin that page to your Substack. That is like an index, essentially.
Yeah.
Not that
I
tricky.
have a Substack page?
Yes.
I have
Diane.
done an index to my post, but instead of doing it as a pinned post, I chose to do it as a custom page, and I've got that link, you know.
And then that appears in the mobile version. Is that right?
Yeah. No, it only appears on the
oh, that's so annoying.
Yeah. So all you get on the app is, you know, the ones that were already there in the first place, which is, because I've been having quite a play with the custom page for the index, and also with the, what are they called? The homepage links as well.
Right.
So, but yeah, they don't, if you have them in your, what's it called? Navigator thing at the top.
Navigation bar.
They don't show up. They do on the website, obviously, but not in the app.
I got some good feedback that at first I didn't understand and resisted, because I resist things, that you don't want too many items in your navigation bar, and you know, long words and too many things. I was like, where are they to tell you? And I'm like, actually, you're right. Keeping them short, keeping them sweet, you know, 5 items, fine. 15 items, not fine.
It does get quite, it does look quite cumbersome if you get too many, which is one of the reasons I was using the homepage links as well, because you can add those onto the publication further down. What I'd like to be able to do is push those up and pull the recommendations down, but I can't. That's not something you can do.
Yes, you can.
Can you? How do you do that? No, I said I found a question. How do you do that?
Wait a minute. Let me go to the right page. So when you go into settings for your publication, share page. So here is my let me show you how I got here. So on my settings page, you go to website, it takes you to theme editor. That's what it is. It's the theme editor. So here you change your home page, and this was all set elsewhere in my settings. And what you choose, the header style you choose here affects how, you know, what appears up there. And so on. Wait a minute, what did I do? That's right.
I've done all that, but
might be where it was before I changed it. So here I have recommendations, and then you choose in your right and left column which things you want to appear. And
Yeah.
I have links for me, I have pushed down to community. I call it, do they call it community or do I call it community? I don't remember. So I've just chosen to put those down here. I could put them up higher.
Okay.
I honestly, instead of deciding that I was trying to get it perfect, I've decided that it's a good thing to keep changing it up.
Mhm.
I did too. Is
Yeah,
it the-
I've changed mine a few times, but I haven't been into the advanced layouts. That's a place I haven't played in. I've played in all the rest of it.
Get in there and play. That's what I say. And ditto, you know where to do the navigation bar at the top. That's going to be
Yeah.
under settings
Yeah.
and then navigation.
Yeah.
And from navigation, of course, you can add links that go other places, which is what I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
My go-to website tool is actually Canva. It is just stupid easy to create web pages and manage them. They've actually now created a way to create multi-page websites, which they didn't used to do. I've been so busy with the way it is, I haven't even bothered trying to use that, but apparently you can. For grins, do we want to cut into topics like what are features you'd like to see on Substack?
Sure.
I've got a, for instance, certainly using actually you all know how to make sure that you are seeing the genealogy category in the top list of categories. Do you know how to do that? Okay. Then I say that one because I complained about that for a long time. I'm glad we finally got it. Then with Substack Live, which I do, as you know, every week for Project Kin, I tried to do it using from my desktop because I wanted to be able to have slides to be able to show things on my screen, even screen sharing. And they were basically, yeah, interesting. We're not going to do it anytime soon. Oops. Okay. So it turns out you can apply for, and they are very generous to give you RTMP access from a streaming device. It's for things like StreamYard and other paid services that you can stream, but it doesn't allow you to have the chat function, which is really limited. So I expect that will come in fairly short order, that they are working on that. They'll be doing that before they do live from a desktop. I don't know why they're resisting that. There may be some technical problem to that. Does anybody use the app on the desktop? I don't know if they have it on Windows. I have it certainly on Mac. And I'm so used to using it in the browser that I see no reason to use it in the app.
In fact, I didn't even know they had an app on the.
Yeah, they do.
I use this. I wish that the edit functions were on the mobile app.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point because it'd be fine on an iPad. I find that I go in the iPad, I open up the browser and use the browser on the iPad and my phone to get full access to pages from time to time, especially stats. Cool. Well, I think as we grow, we as the community grow, I think flexing our muscle a little bit on things we'd like to see is, we can do that. We can ask.
Yeah, I would love to see like different image formats within the layout. I mean, the layout is just a chunk. I wish we could,
Yeah,
some
sometimes it would be
different things.
quite nice to put two photos side by side or whatever. Yeah.
You
Well,
can do that.
That I have done. You can just
The-
upload two at the same time and then they will
Oh,
be.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
As for
hadn't
gallery,
discovered that.
I didn't know that for the longest time either.
Mm.
You know where you have add an image? Below
Yeah.
that is gallery. And I'm like, what is the gallery? And I never tried it.
Oh,
And
I
that's where
didn't
you
know
do it.
that.
Yeah.
I
If you
didn't-
I
put
had
in,
no idea.
yeah, if you put in one, you get one. You put in two, you get
Yeah.
two side by side. Oh, she's back. I worried. Welcome. If you put 2 in side by side, they come in, you can put up to 4, maybe more than that. I don't know. I haven't tried more than that.
Ah, I
You
had
don't
no
get a
idea.
lot of, you can't give it a caption,
Right.
but you can give each image its own alt text, which Diane's
Right.
reminded us is very important.
Mhm.
But, so that can work. That could be a good one for irises, for example.
Yes.
I missed the whole discussion because I got knocked off.
I'm sorry. We were talking about, it lets us repeat it. So Jane was asking about being able to put 2 images side by side. And the answer is yes, you can do that by asking for a gallery. And then you drag and drop in and you put up, I think it's up to 4, but I don't know that. Which reminds me, I do have a post to be working on about my garden, as a matter of fact. Family history, house history and garden. That's where that one's going. And I will use that. I went to actually, this was in response, I think, to your post, Diane. I mentioned a memorial service that I went to last week. And the service was remarkable in many ways. One of the things was that they had artifacts out. Many times you see photos, but they pulled out artifacts like a soccer ball and, things that were important to the friend. And one of the things they had was a glass, what is called shadow box with dried flowers in it, all arranged. And I don't know the story behind those flowers, but I'm certainly inspired to go do a dried flower, shadow box, or references to, images in my garden.
We went to a
I find it
cemetery in Sicily and where my dad's family was buried, and they had these little glass houses in the cemetery where they had the artifacts there, which was really, really cool. The little spectacles and little teeny tiny shoes. I mean, these are grown people, but they were teeny people.
Wow.
Wow.
A Bible, different things like that. It was so fascinating.
That's
No, thinking in American context, I'm like, wow, and nobody stole it, no one broke it. Wow, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, I
Oh,
can't imagine that.
wow. Well, I always have a principle of not wanting to drag things out longer than they need to be. There's such a small group today. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join. I feel very strongly about maintaining our time zone, so we will rotate these, and next month it'll be the Atlantic friendly times of 10 a.m. Pacific time and 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. BST, and carry it on so that we'll be ready.
I have Jane's and Linda's site. Diane, what's the name of yours?
Family history Bowerbird.
Thank you.
That's a great point. I am going to take a quick reference everybody who is here and include your Substacks in my notes. That's a great
good.
point.
Thank you.
Good idea. Sure. I'll also include Deborah.
Yeah.
Anything else? Well, with that, why don't we go ahead and wrap it up? Thank you so much. Stay tuned for the notes. Always try to get these out within a couple of hours, but you know how it goes. Dinner and whatnot.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you so
You
much.
too. Thank you all. Take care
Bye.
now. Bye.
Bye.